Okay, guys, we want to talk a little bit about the developments in Ethiopia. They are very, very concerning, very serious. As some of you may know, if you follow this channel for a while, I was in Ethiopia for 1 year, from the spring of 2016 to the spring of 2017. And as I was leaving, the current Prime Minister, Abiy Ahmed, was put into place. And it was extremely exciting because we had a prime minister there that now represented one of the larger tribes, the Oromo tribe. I believe is the largest or second largest. Another large tribe is Amara, and that's the region I stayed in. And it was very exciting because now one of the tribes had more representation over one of the minority tribes that's been ruling the country for many years. That is what's going on, is that the minority tribe that was ruling Ethiopia for a number of years is revolting against the government. Okay, now, guys, Ethiopia is very difficult to understand. I lived there a year, and when, you would have things, the government would shut down the internet, or you can't ask questions, you can't really understand what's going on. If something takes place in another part of the country, it's a different tribe, and there's no information. You don't really know what's going on, and that's purposeful. So the government was repressing protests and different things when I was there all the time. The internet will be shut down. So that's what's taking place again. But it seems that the government now is waging a campaign against this minority tribe that had ruled the nation for so many years. I think they only, Tigray, okay, the Tigray tribe, I think the Tigray tribe only represented about 5% of the overall population. Very small amount of people in relation to the larger tribes. But they ruled all aspects of government, finance, military, everything. They had all the seats of government for decades. So finally, they put in a prime minister that represented and it was very exciting because he was a peacemaker. He reached out to Eritrea, and it was like he won the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, this was amazing, okay? But now there seems to be things going on that it's the same old, okay? And there's more protests and more, things going on, and it's horrible things are going on. We're going to look at the potential of some prophecy, okay? That when I was there, whenever you travel, guys, and you're somewhere for, like a few months or, some time, even a few years, you begin to look at what the Bible says about that place, okay? So I looked up a lot of prophecy about Ethiopia, fascinating place. And that's what we're going to share a little bit with you in this video a little bit later on. But for those of you, of course, in the West, and the Americans, you might think this is an insignificant event. It's just more tribal warfare in Africa. No, guys, this is very, very serious. And we want to keep an eye on this. Hopefully the the fighting and the things that don't take place on civilians, okay? But that appears to be the case. That's always been the case in Ethiopia. It's always very sad. It's always very upsetting to see, the people that already are, living under poor conditions and great difficulties, okay, then having worse situations, okay? So there's a lot of things going on there that it would appear that it could be some other things, guys. There could be some other reasons, less obvious. I'm not going to really get into them, mention, and speculate. But typically, all war is based on oil, okay? So that could be in play. There could be other types of retribution going on where the government is going back against this Tigray tribe that ruled the country repressively for so many years. That could be going on. But unfortunately, what's going on is really affecting civilians. So you have a mass exodus taking place of many Ethiopians going into Sudan. Okay, and we're going to look at the prophecy related to Ethiopia going to captivity. Now, before we do, let's talk a little bit about the history of Ethiopia. Now, when we say Ethiopia, this is a Greek word. It's basically the Greek name for the Hebrew Cush or Cushi. Okay, so this goes back to the times of Noah. Noah's son Ham had a son Cush. So Cush is Noah's grandson. So that area we know goes to Africa. Okay, it's not in Egypt, it's south of Egypt. So the specific Cush or Cushite kingdom we know to be Sudan. It's specifically Sudan, and we know the capital of it and everything else. But the Cushite kingdom and other kingdoms in the area of modern day Ethiopia changed hands, and there's balance of power, different things, so that the modern nation of Ethiopia has Addis Ababa as its capital, which is more towards the middle and towards the south of the country. But the old capital city was called Axum. And Axum is to the north, and it is close to the border of Sudan. So really when we say Ethiopia, when we say Cush, we're essentially saying that is south of Egypt, but it includes this whole area, like the Horn of Africa, okay? So that whole area, presently you have specific tribes. But when we go back historically, of course, it was Cush that developed this area and, spread in this area. So a lot of prophecy is related to Ethiopia, or in the Hebrew, we call it Cush. Okay, so Cush is how you say in Hebrew, and once we get to modern times in the New Testament, Ethiopia comes from the Greek name of Cush, okay? So the main capital was up in the north. It's in Axum, and that's the place of great debate. Now, I want to mention another things about historically about Ethiopia, that when I spent my time there, I did the research, and I don't want to repeat things that could be erroneous. For example, in Ethiopia, it's an old Christian country. So this is going back to, what is it, like the 9th century or thereabouts. I may not have but it's we're looking at a pretty large period of time, over 1,000 years of Christianity being the predominant religion of the nation, okay? And they began to develop this kind of legend that the Queen of Sheba, when she visited Solomon, she was from Ethiopia, okay? She was from the east. So technically, Ethiopia is east of Jerusalem. However, she was from Sheba, Queen of Sheba, okay? So we know that to be more like Arabia area. And the scriptures are very specific when it comes to Cush or Ethiopia. It says specifically different wars and different things that take place. They were Cush, they were Cush, they were Cush. They clearly identified things that were Cush. So it doesn't say that the Queen of Sheba was Cushite, Cush, or from Africa. Nonetheless, they maintained this idea that somewhere one of, Sheba was the queen of Ethiopia, and she had a son, Melech, and he was a son of Solomon. And that the rulers of Ethiopia were actually sons of Solomon. And this developed to the extent that they actually believed they had the Ark of the Covenant come from Solomon, okay? Now, in my research, guys, none of those things are true. Sheba is more like the Arabia area, and not Cush. It doesn't say specifically Cush, okay? So I just want to mention that when we talk about history, we talk about Ethiopia, we talk about prophecy. It's a fascinating place. I loved it. That's where I learned how to suffer, and I learned many things. And I really want you to watch a video on the tour. So I give tours, and of course the tours in Israel, the tours in Jerusalem are very popular, exciting. But I have other tours of other places which I think are equally amazing, but not as popular. And that is Ethiopia. They're rock-hewn churches. So they built churches basically into the mountain, and I give these tours of these churches, okay? And in that, you can go through and you can see some of the history of the things that we're talking about. So I'll have a link in the description field for the Ethiopia rock-hewn churches. Fascinating. I loved it. So that's where I stayed the majority of the time I was in Ethiopia, was in this area called Lalibela, and that was Amara. Okay, so it is the Amara tribe that's caught in the crosshairs right now, because you have Tigray in the north, Oromo in the south, and in between is Amara. And it appears that the massacre took place over hundreds of Ethiopians. They were Amara. They were targeted as Amara. And this makes it, unclear as to who is perpetrating, because is it Tigray? Is it Oromo? It's a little bit confusing. In fact, it's probably confusing for you listening to me. So let's look at a map and show you a little bit what this looks like. Okay, here's a kind of tribal map of Ethiopia. You can see it says religion, and it gives you some percentages of religion, but it gives us a layout of the tribes. So when it says here Somali, what this is saying is the Somali tribe. So this isn't actually Somalia, that's actually over here. But the people and ethnicity are Somali. That's a tribe. And so the present prime minister is Oromo. And so here you can see Oromia, and you can see the area of where that tribe is, going here and here. You have some minority tribes here, and here is the tribe called Amara. When you're talking about Amara, that's this tribe, and Tigray is here. So the capital city, Addis Ababa, is here, and that's in Oromo, okay? And these are predominant population, the largest tribes, Oromo and Amara, and Tigray is minority. So that borders up here in Eritrea, and then over here is Somalia. Okay, so so that's what we're looking at, is that Oromo in the government that's ruling, of course, the whole nation, is going against a city up in the Tigray region called Mekelle, and Mekelle is the city that represents kind of like a capital of that area. So they're going against Mekelle there, okay? And so what's happening is there's people that are up there in another tribes or another city or town that are ethnically Amara, and they're being kind of caught in the crosshairs between Oromo and Tigray. So it's very sad, it's very heart-wrenching to see these people going as refugees, kind of crossing, I forget where the Nile is, but the Blue Nile comes from here, and you have people crossing rivers going into Sudan by the thousands, okay? So this is a huge crisis on our hands, okay? So it's very sad. I find it very, very heart-wrenching and sad to see, having been there. Actually, I had thought, Ethiopia would be a great place to kind of ride out the apocalypse, But of course, there's no safe place in the earth. It's all getting crazier and crazier. Now, I thought I'd take you to Google Maps and give you some geography of what area we're talking about and what's going on. So one of the ancient capitals of the Kushite kingdom is Merari. Okay, and this is where it is. And you can see that's in Sudan, and where it is in proximity to Egypt and the Nile, etc. And then, of course, where you have the president capital is Khartoum there. So what happens is that you have Sudan and South Sudan going into civil war and being divided up, and then you have Eritrea here, which is coastal, and the Eritreans and Ethiopians are ethnically, religiously the same, okay? But there's been a lot of conflict, and Abiy went and did some peacemaking between the two, and it was very exciting to see. It was very positive. So, so you can see Ethiopia is very mountainous, and it's what feeds, the Nile. And what's happening is in this upper region here, you can see Mekelle is here,
and that's very close to the border of Eritrea. But the people cannot go into Eritrea. They have to walk and they have to go to Sudan. And so then Sudan is over here, and that's what's happening in a mass exodus. Now, as we look at prophecy, we want to mention a couple things. So you can see that biblically here, Sudan, and that's the old Cushite kingdom that we mentioned before. But when the scripture is talking about Cush or Ethiopia, it is all this region. It is much of this region that it's addressing, okay? And so there were wars where they went into Jerusalem and fought, and many, always known the Cushite kingdom by the Romans, etc. A very long established culture and area, okay? But what I want you to notice is where we are. So we have Ethiopia here, and it's not showing the border very well, but this is the border. And let's remember, Oromo was to the south, and bordering, and the Oromo tribe goes into Kenya. Now, this is disputed, guys, but there's some that believe Obama is Oromo. So that the prophecy says, you know, can a leopard change its spots? Can an Ethiopian change his skin? Okay, so there's a connection in prophecy to the leopard and the Ethiopian. Okay, so that you find it in Jeremiah 13. So it was in Kenya that Obama did the speech where he was talking about the sacrifices in Michigan. I'll have a link to another video, but one of the most significant prophetic events happened in Kenya when Obama was in Kenya on the 9th of Av, 2015, triggering Daniel's timeline, okay, when in Michigan they dedicated the statue, the goat's Baphomet statue in Michigan, okay? So I want to mention that because these are prophecies in this Cushite kingdom, in this area of Ethiopia, of Bible prophecy. Now let's take a look at a couple prophecies related to Ethiopia or Cush. So we're in Isaiah 18, and woe to the land shadowing with wings, which is beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. That's, of course, King James. And when we go and we look at this word in Hebrew, you can see it's Cush. Okay, Cush. And we also have prophecies, the burden of Egypt in Isaiah 19. Okay, so these are prophecies against Ethiopia, against Egypt. And then we get to Isaiah chapter 20. Okay, and we have more prophecy related to Ethiopia where it could be what we're looking at, guys, in the news right now. Isaiah 20, in the year that Tartan came unto Ashdod, and the king of Assyria sent him and fought against Ashdod and took it. In the same he said the Lord to Isaiah the son of Amoz, saying, Go, loose the sackcloth from your loins and put off the shoes of your foot. And he did so, walking naked and barefoot. And the Lord said, Like as my servant Isaiah has walked naked and barefoot 3 years for a sign and a wonder. So he told Isaiah to take off his garment and take off his shoes and walk barefoot and naked before the people. 3 years for a sign and a wonder upon Egypt and Ethiopia, or Cush. So shall the king of Assyria lead away the Egyptians prisoners and the Ethiopians captives, young and old, naked and barefoot, even with their buttocks uncovered, to the shame of Egypt. And they shall be afraid and ashamed of Ethiopia, their expectation, and the Egypt, their glory. Now, let me read the last verse, and we'll talk about Egypt and Ethiopia. And the inhabitant of this isle shall say in that day, Behold, such is our expectation, whether we flee for help and be delivered from the king of Assyria. How shall we escape? So this prophecy is talking about Ethiopia going into captivity and fleeing, barefoot and naked. And we're seeing thousands of people fleeing, okay? But what they're talking about is the king of Assyria, All right. And of course, anything that happens has to have the approval of the United States, including Abiy. So that this may be, what's going on here. Okay. But of course it says Egypt and Ethiopia. Now, Egypt and Ethiopia are mentioned many times, and they're in conflict over a dam. They're in conflict. Ethiopia, about 70% of the population, Ethiopia has no electricity. So they're trying to do a hydroelectric dam, the largest in Africa, and Egypt is against this because they're saying you're going to limit the amount of water coming from the Nile, and so there's been this conflict going on. Well, there's record flooding where downstream Sudan is flooded, so that that just doesn't make any sense. But both of these nations are listed quite often in prophecy. But some of the prophecy relates to the Antichrist. And he shall also enter into the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown. But these shall escape out of his hand, Edom, Moab, and Ammon, so modern-day Jordan. And he shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries in the land of Egypt, which shall not escape. And he shall have power over the treasuries of gold and silver, and over the precious things of Egypt, and of the Libyans. And the Ethiopians shall be at his steps. Okay? So these are some interesting prophecies about Egypt and Ethiopia as it relates to the Antichrist. Okay? But remember, when we're talking about Ethiopia, we're not just talking about modern Ethiopia. It also is going into Sudan and Eritrea, even Somalia potentially, and tribally also Kenya. However, when we look at this, one way of looking at this is the different nations that are forming ties with Israel. Okay, Sudan was a critical nation to make ties with Israel because they had made the agreement before that none of the Arab nations shall, make ties with Israel unless they do something about the Palestinians. So Sudan has done this. Okay, so remember, Sudan is Ethiopia biblically. So that is amazing, and you can see that the Antichrist, he will have power over their treasuries. He's going to influence the economies of these nations. And so the United States, had sanctions against Sudan all this time, but they said, okay, we'll lift the sanctions if you will make ties with Israel. Okay, so Sudan is Muslim. They're Arab speaking, they're Muslim. And South Sudan is Christian, and they're more Christian. So it's extraordinary, of course, that Sudan would make ties with Israel. But what's interesting is that it says, and he shall stretch forth his hand over the countries of the land of Egypt, okay, and have power over the treasuries of gold and silver of Egypt, of Libya, and Cush, Ethiopia, or Sudan.
So when you see this scarf I have in all the videos, guys, this is from Ethiopia. So people, wonder, oh, that's nice where I get it. I don't think you can get it anywhere. You actually have to go to Ethiopia or go a place where the Ethiopians are. So, guys, these are some developments of what's going on in Ethiopia, things that are very concerning. We want to give you a little bit of history. We want to give you a little bit of prophetic insight, potentially, of these prophecies, end times prophecies, and this captivity, of Ethiopia. And we also want to consider that it's not just, when we say Ethiopia, we have this country, you have Eritrea, but scripturally and ethnically, all of those are Cush, okay, the Cushite kingdom. So we just want to give you a little backdrop, tell you a little bit about some of the tribes, a little bit of what's going on there. We'll watch what happens, okay? Watch what happens between Egypt and Ethiopia with the dam. These are times of tribulation for sure. For many all over the world, and very, very sad for the people that already live under difficult circumstances. So our hearts go out and prayers go out to the Ethiopians, to any of those that have to flee persecution, flee war, okay, all over the world. So thanks for watching, guys. Please watch in the description field the Ethiopian rock-hewn churches fascinating tour. So guys, thanks for watching, and God bless you.